The scripture reading this morning is from Matthew 4, 1 to 11. Then Jesus was led into the desert by the Spirit to be tempted by the devil. After fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, Jesus was hungry. Then the tempter approached and said, "If you are God's son, command these stones to turn into bread." Jesus replied, "Scripture has it, we live not on bread alone, but on every utterance that comes from the mouth of God." Next, the devil took Jesus to the holy city, set him on the parapet of the temple, and said, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. Scripture has it, God will tell the angels to take care of you. With their hands they will support you, that you may never stumble on a stone." Jesus answered, "Scripture also says, do not put God to the test." The devil then took Jesus up on a very high mountain and displayed all the dominions of the world in their magnificence, promising, "All these I will give you if you fall down and worship me." At this, Jesus said to the devil, "Away with you, Satan. Scripture says, you will worship the Most High God. God alone will you adore." At that, the devil left, and the angels came and attended Jesus.
So this week, in our Give It Up for Lent series, I've been tasked with reflecting on giving up control. And it has been an interesting challenge, and one that took me in places I did not expect it to go when we started last week. At the outset of the week, I tried to set some parameters on how I wanted to explore control. In particular, around how I make lists and lists of things to try and stay in control of my schedule and my everyday life. Grocery lists, to-do lists, reminder lists, all of those sorts of things. In retrospect, those plans were probably an attempt to control the Give It Up for Lent project itself. You know you have control issues when you try to control how you give up control. We'll come back to those lists later. But let's start thinking about control in its most obvious manifestations, where it's obvious that control is either really an illusion, not something that exists at all, or quite destructive. Well, first of all, there are efforts as humans to control things that we really cannot control. We want to control the weather. We want to control our health. And yes, there are some things we can do to contribute to good health, but we all know that we really don't control our health. We think we have control over our lives, and then a car accident, a fire, a job loss, or something else just turns everything upside down. There are many things, even very vital things, that are absolutely outside of our control. And the more we can fully accept this, the more serenity we will have in our lives. When we stop fighting reality and start accepting things as they are without trying to control them, the new possibilities for creative living in the midst of life can open up before us. Then there are efforts to control other people. It was really interesting the other week at the women's breakfast how much easier it was for us to identify what other people should give up for Lent rather than what we should give up ourselves. And some of the ways we try to control others are obvious. Things like giving instructions, nagging, rewarding behaviors we like, and criticizing ones we don't. But others are less obvious, but no less controlling. The silent treatment, people-pleasing, projecting our thoughts and feelings onto other people. In fact, I would hazard a guess that there is not a person here today who doesn't, in some way, conscious or not, try to control the people who are closest to them. We do that for two primary reasons. First, we do that because we care about their well-being, and we genuinely want to be helpful to them. And second, and this is the one we don't always acknowledge, We do it because their behavior and emotions influence ours. If our partner or child or parent is angry or stressed or overtired or grouchy, well, that affects us. But the truth about all of this is, we are not in control of anyone else's life. And what most of us long most deeply for is to be accepted for who we are, complete with our grouchiness and annoying habits. Friedrich Buechner once wrote about control. Stop trying to protect, to rescue, to judge, to manage the lives around you. Your children's lives, the lives of your husband, your wife, your partner, your friends. Because that is just what you are powerless to do. Remember that the lives of other people are not your business. They are their business. They are God's business. Because they all have God, whether they use the word God or not. Even your own life is not your business. It is also God's business. Leave it to God. It is an astonishing thought. It can become a life-transforming thought. Which brings us to the third area we all, or most of us, try to control, ourselves. And here is perhaps where the illusion of control lingers longest for those of us who pride ourselves on self-control. I used to believe that I had, or at the least I should, have absolute control over myself. And while it is true that I have more control over myself than over other people, I am discovering more and more that there are large aspects of myself that I don't control either. I want to like someone, but I really don't. I believe that change is for the best, but I still encounter inner resistance. I want to fall asleep at night at a reasonable time, but my mind is spinning and spinning and spinning. I wish to be creative right now and write a terrific sermon, but I cannot force creativity on demand. Not only do I not control other people, but it turns out I'm not fully in control of myself either. To paraphrase Buechner, even my own life is not my business. It is God's business. There are many things that fall mostly or entirely outside of our control. And trying to control the uncontrollable is a formula for frustration and burnout and wasted energy. If we stop trying to control what is outside our control, then we can learn to live creatively with what is, rather than what we wish was. So now I wish I could stop here, because this is the easy kind of control to talk about. The message is straightforward. Stop trying to control things that are outside your control. Hand it over to God. But then I got thinking about the Olympics and what allows top athletes in disciplines like downhill skiing and the luge to succeed. It occurs to me that success in these events depends on a finely tuned balance between control and releasing control. An out-of-control ski or luge is a ticket to disaster, possibly life-threatening disaster. On the other hand, rigid control is neither desirable nor possible. If you don't work with the course as it is on race day, you will not have a good result either. Which got me thinking about my lists and about the other areas of life where what is desirable is a balance between control and letting go. My lists are not a bad thing in themselves. Often they actually help me to be fully present in the moment by noting something I don't want to do right now, but I also don't want to forget about. And if I forgot to return any phone calls this week, I gave up lists. Yet they can also become an obstacle. When my to-do list spills over onto a second page, and the weight of what I have not yet accomplished in the day begins to overshadow what I did do, or when I'm caught up in cycles of excessive planning in order to minimize future stress, which gets me caught in deep stress right now. And in those moments, often what I'm trying to plan for, well, it's a contingency that will never actually happen. I'm not a parent, but I can imagine that parenting is also a finely tuned balance between control and letting go. You cannot control your children. As we affirm every time we baptize a child, they are God's children, not ours. They are meant to become the people God intends them to be, not necessarily the people we intend them to be. We don't control their lives, nor should we. Yet the task of guiding, supporting, encouraging, and even correcting does belong to adults who love them and want the best for them. And the balance between control and letting go changes as circumstances and situations change. The appropriate response to a 2-year-old running out into the street where a car is coming is that any adult nearby should grab that child immediately. The appropriate response to a 20-year-old who seems to be making self-destructive choices is much more nuanced. And of course, there is all kinds of middle ground in between. Sometimes living and loving well is about finding the balance between control and letting go in each moment. Okay, so now that surely completes what I need to say about control, right? Letting go of trying to control the things that are outside of our control, and seeking to find balance for those elements where control and release are in tune. Except, then there was a shooting at a high school in Portland, Florida on Wednesday, Ash Wednesday. And this got me thinking about the things we believe we do not control, but we are really called to work to change. The image of a woman with her Ash Wednesday cross on her forehead, waiting outside that school, brought home to me the dynamic of Ash Wednesday, which tells us to accept that we are mortal and a situation in which mortality should not have been at issue. There seems to be a culture of acceptance around gun violence in the United States, which I find absolutely stunning. No other developed nation has the kind of school shooting problem that the United States does. In Canada, for instance, there have been 19 school shootings since 1884. That's 1884. And only one of those 19 shootings had more than 4 fatalities, and most of them had none. The one that did was École Polytechnique in Montreal in 1989. By contrast, in just the last 2 years in the United States, there have been 29 school shootings, 8 in the first 7 weeks of this year. This is not something that should be accepted as normal or outside of social control. Canadians are not inherently more peaceful or better people than Americans. Social change is necessary to fix this glaring problem. And social change starts when people give up the idea that the situation is outside of their control. It's always easier to see where other people need to change than ourselves. But these events have me wondering, what do I accept as normal and outside my control that God would really have me work to change? Where must I claim my power as a citizen and human being to make our country and the world a better place? Where is my surrender to the status quo, supporting and reinforcing a system that is broken? Those are tough questions, but important ones, I think. So we don't use giving up control as an excuse not to participate in God's work of justice and peace building in the world. Which brings me back to the scripture passage for today. It's a familiar story, one we read on the first Sunday of Lent each year. Jesus has been baptized by John in the River Jordan when he is driven out into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. There in the desert, he faces temptation. As I was reflecting on this story in light of our theme this week, I found myself paraphrasing the tempter's request to Jesus in my mind. Take control, Jesus. Make bread out of stones. Take control, Jesus. Leap. God will save you. Take control, Jesus. Rule the world with me. And each time, Jesus says no. First he says, no, I won't change stones to bread. I accept the natural order of things. Bread is bread and stones are stones. I won't fight reality as it is. Second, he says, no, I won't put God to the test. My relationship with God is about journeying together, not about me testing to see if God will come to my rescue. Third, he says, no, I won't try to rule the world in the way you mean. God's way is my way, and I'm not giving in to your vision of how the world should be. Get behind me, Satan. And interestingly, in some ways this parallels the three kinds of control I've been reflecting on this week. When it comes to the natural order of things and other matters which are genuinely outside of our control, the appropriate path is to accept what is and to work with reality, not to expend our precious life energy battling against it. Stones are not bread. When it comes to those things which are partially in our control, it is a balance. In this story, Jesus refuses to test his relationship with God in a way that would throw that relationship out of whack. Yet at the end of the story, God's angels or messengers do tend to his needs. This is not a rejection of the relationship or his responsibility for tending that relationship, but a refusal to try to control the relationship. Finally, Jesus rejects a world where the powerful control others and the vulnerable are at their mercy. Jesus refuses to collude with the mighty. And throughout his ministry, we will see that this is a powerful yet dangerous choice. Jesus' teaching and ministry will challenge both religious and secular authorities. He will be perceived as a threat, not because he takes up violent methods, but because he questions the way things are in a way which makes other people ask questions too. I wonder what questions he would ask of us today if he were here in our midst. So this has been Giving Up Control Week. And I must admit I'm ready to be done with it. Although I doubt that I am truly finished with reflecting on control in my life and in our society. Nevertheless, onwards now to giving up complaining, which is at least more concrete than control. Tune in throughout the week online if you have access for daily reflections, and join us next Sunday to reflect on what it means to give up complaining and to embrace the positive. If our ministry here at Trinity touches your life, then I invite you to offer whatever support you can for our work. We depend almost entirely on donations. You can donate in many ways, by placing cash or checks in the offering plates. Please put it in an envelope so that we can issue a tax receipt. Through pre-authorized remittance on a monthly basis, which can be set up by calling the church office. Online via our website at trinityunitedportage.ca, or through money transfer, gifts of mutual funds or shares, and other means. If any of those methods are of interest, please contact the church office. We are grateful for all the ways in which your gifts help to make this ministry possible. Our offering will now be received.